Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon joins me now. He sits on the House Armed Services Committee, a regular participant in this great program. Congressman, I'm glad to have you with us. What's your take on what's happened in the last 24 hours?
We had a ceasefire on paper, but it's not been reality. As you mentioned, Israel, struck Lebanon, but it was the United States and the Israeli view that that was not part of the ceasefire. Evidently, Iran thought it was. But also, Iran struck Kuwait, UAE, and other friendly countries in the Persian Gulf. So we've not actually seen the ceasefire take place. Our goal is to have a friendly government that wants to be friends with us and its neighbors, respects human rights of its people, and also does not want a nuclear weapon. It's very hard to get this kind of government or to get regime change with air power alone. We may have to settle for something less. I think we've done a great job of training much of the military in Iran, and they will not be a threat for 5 years to come or so, though they could threaten the Straits of Hormuz. But what worries me, you have an enemy regime that hates us in place. Russia and China will at some point help them replace the destroyed military, and there will be a threat once again. And so I think if I was a guy in the White House or the National Security Council or the Pentagon, I would ask myself, is this tolerable? Do I want a threat 5 years from now, or can I live with the fact that we bought ourselves some time?
Congressman, the president keeps saying the regime has changed in Iran. Do you believe that?
Well, the top two leaders have been killed, and a lot of the top tier leadership, but it's still the Ayatollah or the mullahs. They're the family of that regime. They're very anti-American. We have to also realize that it's discouraging to hear some of the comments from the White House today. You cannot trust these guys at all. They have never negotiated in good faith with America ever since Ronald Reagan tried to, back in the early 1980s. But it's not the same actual leader, but it's the same brand of leadership. It's IRGC. It's the radical Islamists that are governing it. And I feel bad for the people. When you poll Iran, they're the most friendly, the most pro-American folks in the Middle East, maybe outside of Israel, towards America. And they want to have their freedoms back. But it's hard to do that with air power alone. That's the challenge we have.
The president also told Jonathan Karl of ABC today he might entertain the idea of the United States and Iran jointly splitting toll revenue through the Strait of Hormuz. How does that strike you?
Sounds rather ludicrous to me that we would be working with the mullah regime that hates us, that's killed over 1,000 Americans since 1979, to include some of my friends, like at Khobar Towers that targeted an Air Force dormitory, killed 19 Americans. I think it's very ludicrous. Again, Major, there's no way to work with these people. They hate us. We're the big Satan to them. So I think we should put very little stock that we can have a cooperative relationship with them. They're going to have to really do a good job convincing me otherwise that they can do that. But I also accept the fact we may not get regime change, and we're going to have 4 or 5 years of an Iran that has a much degraded military, a much degraded threat to the region. That is a good thing.
I want to shift your attention to something you've talked about this week, which is the vice president's trip to Hungary on behalf of Viktor Orban, who's running behind in all but government-backed polls for re-election. And the vice president was asked today why he was there. And he said, let me read this to you. I don't want to get your response. We came here fundamentally to try to counteract some of the propaganda coming from the bureaucracy in Brussels. I've never seen something like it. I'm still quoting the vice president here, where you have the bureaucracy of the EU trying to impose costs on the Hungarian people in order to sway the result of an election. How do you respond to that?
First, we should not have a senior leader campaigning for a candidate in a NATO country. We let those countries and their voters decide. We would be offended to have somebody come to our country and campaign for the Democrat nominee or the Republican nominee, whatever it may be. It would bother us. Stay out of our country. Let us decide our elections on our own. Well, that's how Hungarians feel as well. We should stay out of their elections and let them decide. It could be that the other side's going to win this, and they're going to remember that Vice President Vance went there and campaigned for Orban, and it's going to create problems down the road. Now, why does EU have troubles with Orban? Well, first, it's the most pro-Russian He is the most pro-Russian leader within NATO, and he's undermined NATO's attempts to help Ukraine at every step. In fact, he's been a big nemesis to Ukraine, which is a victim of this Russian invasion. So there is legitimate reasons to be, I would say, disappointed in Orban, but we let the people decide of Hungary. We don't get involved and interfere. I think most Americans would be offended if someone like Vance from another country came to our country and did the same.
Before I let you go, Congressman, you're going to be back in Washington, and as will all of your colleagues next week. Do you think next week will be the week that the House passes something that the president can sign to end the shutdown with DHS?
We're going to pass the Senate version of the bill that does not have ICE or Border Patrol. I think it's a mistake by the Democrats. I mean, in this case, we've already fired the Secretary of DHS. We have the person overseeing the Minneapolis operations is now gone. And there's been changes in tactics and strategy that our leadership has put in place. I think there's already been changes made. We need a Homeland Security. We need a Border Patrol. We need ICE. Granted, I think they overstepped at times. I know that's happened in Omaha, but we need them funded. But we're going to fund the Senate version, but that does not fund ICE or Border Patrol. And we're going to have to find a different way to fund those two agencies, and we need to do it quickly.
So the shutdown will effectively end next week.
Other than for Border Patrol and ICE, and people say, well, it's already been funded through reconciliation. That is like halfway true. The funding that we did in reconciliation funds the agents, but it doesn't fund any of the support personnel. So say you're a secretary, as just an example, at ICE, you will not get paid under the bill that we passed this coming week. So we need to do more work. Everybody that works for the United States of America should be paid.
Congressman Don Bacon, Republican, Nebraska. I appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.